The LSU defensive front, usually solid, if not spectacular. We take a look with Billy Gomilla from And the Valley Shook on the SB Nation platform for the LSU Tigers, just weeks away from the start of the season, just maybe a week away or less from August camp. Billy, a 3-4 scheme this year, converting from the 4-3. That's probably the biggest narrative concerning this defensive front. How do you think that changes up personnel and the assignments?
It's going to be a little different. They're going to move some guys around. I wouldn't surprise me if guys play different spots in different sets and nickel and dime and so on and so forth. I mean, when LSU's in dime, there's really only going to be two guys with their hands in the ground playing, classic defensive lineman roles. But, the kind of, I guess, the breakout star of the group will be Arden, who last year played defensive end and really came on down the stretch as a true freshman. And is going to move to that buck outside linebacker position coming from the boundary side of the field. Could really, kind of fit that role as that edge pass rusher and really could blossom in this defense. I think he has a chance to be a real, real sack artist. And if he can get, in that 10-12 sack range, it's really going to help a lot of other guys. Otherwise, they're moving some guys some new spots. Neal, who played defensive end last year and led the team in sacks, moving to more of a is still playing technically a defensive end, but he's going to be in kind of a 3-tech position on outside the guard, and still going to be tasked with penetrating a lot and trying to get upfield. Davon Gaudchaux, who played 3 technique last year, is moving to the nose position. He's not your typical 3-4 nose like a Vince Wilfork or a Terrence Cody or one of those guys who's going to sit there and really space eat. But he's very, very quick, and I think LSU is going to use him like that. Kind of similar to the way Wade Phillips' style 3-4 with the Denver Broncos, where a lot of the linemen, instead of being those big guys who two-gap and hold up linemen and try to keep linebackers free, are still penetrating and trying to get upfield. And Davon Gaudchaux, he's got a quick first step, and he's got really good hands, and I think he could be really hard for centers to deal with in the middle like that. The big guy is going to be Christian Lockature on the field side, playing that 5 technique end spot where he's going to be kind of lined up over the tackle and really trying to stand up that tackle and control that side of the line of scrimmage and try to keep the blockers free on that side.
Gaudchaux racked up 5 sacks. You mentioned Neal leading the team with 7 and their changed responsibility. So this is an extremely good front 4. I don't think there's any question about that, but typically the better teams play 7 or 8 guys. Your thoughts about the depth? Some unproven players are going to have to step in, even though maybe more is going to be counted on these 4 than the typical front 4 of most teams.
Well, they're going to rotate a lot of guys. Ed Ogeron is big on trying to rotate as many guys as he can. And I think a lot of the rotational guys haven't proven that they can step up and maybe handle big-time minutes, but they've been strong in spurts, and I think this defense is going to highlight kind of what they do well, maybe a little bit better. Greg Gilmore, who's a big guy, more of the classic nose tackle, a little on the bigger side, but has shown he can really get up and down the line of scrimmage a bit. So he can move. Frank Herron, who, if it clicks for him athletically, he's got every tool to be kind of that end tackle tweener who can penetrate, but it still has some good size. And then, of course, they've got a lot of freshmen coming in. Glenn Logan from Destrehan High School, one of the big powerhouse high schools here in Louisiana. Big 300-pound, kind of same thing, defensive end, defensive tackle, hybrid player. Ed Ogeron really likes him. He's going to play a lot, probably back up Lockature on the field side of that 5-tech end spot. And, of course, you had Rashard Lawrence, big 5-star defensive tackle. He's going to rotate in with Gaudchaux on the nose and kind of have a chance to wreak some havoc there. And then the X factor could be Trevante Valentine, former 5-star recruit 2 years ago. Kind of been bounced around with some academic troubles, and there's talk. It's not confirmed yet, but he may be back on the team, and he would give them that 330-pound big presence where they can move him around. And Dave Aranda is going to move some guys from different spots. Neal is going to play end. He's going to slide inside. He's going to play, in a 2-point stance as kind of a linebacker in some sets. A lot of guys are going to move around. It's going to be really interesting to see how it all comes together.
Hey, Billy, when we look at each of the four starters, we're looking at a guy that's typically rated as one of the 2 or 3 best in the conference at his spot. Is this, you've been watching LSU football, and some of the defensive fronts have been stellar, have produced a great NFL talent. Does this defensive line compare, or does it have that kind of potential?
It's got a lot of potential. They haven't quite gotten there yet. But there's some really good players here, and there's some good young depth that's building up, and that things are building towards in the future. And some big guys coming in this class. Tyler Shelvin's a big 320, 330 pound, more the classic nose tackle type, But he's quick, and he's shown he can move guys. He can get around people too. So it's getting back there. It's not quite where it was in that mid aughts, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, where they were just first round draft picks and All Americans, and guys like Kyle Williams, who was only a 3rd round draft pick, and he's an All Pro in the NFL still. But it's getting there, and I think they're finding kind of the right positions for these guys that's going to allow them to excel. And even a guy like Neal, he's never going to be, I think, a high draft pick. He's a little kind of undersized for defensive tackle, a little not quite as tall and not quite as fast, probably on the stopwatch as NFL teams like from the defensive end, but he's relentless. He's kind of – it's funny watching him and Ed Ogeron next to each other, really kind of like avatars of one another. Lewis is this short, stocky guy, big arms, big chest, really smart kid too, and real active. He has a chance to kind of – especially with Arden Key, if he really blows up as that speed guy off the edge and he draws that extra attention, Neal could really rack up some numbers.
And when you've got that kind of motor, and obviously he still has exceptional talent, that often makes up for quite a bit when you're just talking about an inch and a half and half a step slow. And when we say slow, of course, that's relatively speaking to first-round draft picks. All right, LSU, SEC offenses, brace yourself for one of the better defensive fronts in all of college football. All right, Billy Gomilla joining us from In the Valley Shook, helping us size up the LSU defensive front. Thanks a lot, Billy.
Thanks for having me, Mark.